Overdrive. Today we check out the newly launched Jeep Grand Cherokee, take a closer look at British sports car maker McLaren's offerings for India, and find out what's changed in the updated Volvo XC40. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Soini. Jeep India has launched the 5th generation Grand Cherokee in its new avatar, and in this avatar it has become a more luxurious SUV. Here's Tuhin with all the details.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee is back in India, and in this 5th generation, guys, it continues to offer that tough, outdoorsy feel that you expect of a Jeep, wrapped up in all the trappings of a luxury SUV. But as we will see in this walk around, things have moved on quite a bit from there. Now this new Grand Cherokee carries the typical Jeep family face, so you have that slim LED headlamp, those big deep set 7-slat grille with the wide sort of air dam. But it's also functional. For example, there has been thought given to approach angles. As you can see how this car is placed here. So the bumper is not too extended forward, so there's still good approach angle. So that functional but stylish design theme carries over to the side as well. And yes, you do have this quite attractive B-pillar design. But if you look at the glass area, it's large, the belt line is low, so visibility is not going to be so much of an issue, hopefully. And there's more functionality in the form of ground clearance. There's 215 mm of it. The water wading depth is 533 mm, again a good figure. And you also get these quite nice looking 20-inch wheels as standard. Now we brought you to another car, one we can actually open and show you what the Grand Cherokee is like from the inside. To start with, we will show you the boot. You have a powered tailgate and a large boot space. Now the international model has over 1000 litres, but of course that's not true for the India spec car because it has a large spare wheel. It's not full size, still 18 inches, but of smaller dimensions, so it's still a space saver, but just not of the full size. And this is how you close it. Now step inside the Grand Cherokee and it really is quite impressive, exactly what you would expect from a large luxury SUV. To start with the design, so you have this layered sort of look to it where this wood, again a very nice feeling wood veneer meets the leather surfaces. It is really nice stitching. It's very modern, taut kind of design to the whole place. The start-stop button, the way it's placed and so on. So it's a really striking, really crisp place to spend time in. Now if you like your screens, then the Grand Cherokee well and truly has you covered. To start with, you have a 10.25-inch instrument cluster, a large 10-inch head-up display which is again fully color, gives you a lot of information clearly in front of you. You have this 10.1-inch screen, again quite similar to the Compass, but again that's not a bad thing at all because of how useful that screen anyway is to begin with. But here's the real highlight. The passenger too gets a 10.25-inch screen where you can watch videos. The passenger can watch a video, but if you're seated here as a driver, there's a film over it, so the driver will never really be distracted by it. Anyway, it's got quite a low brightness. You get, of course, a panoramic sunroof, you get 4-zone climate control, you get heated and cooled seats, you get a heated steering wheel, you get fully powered seats, a head-up display like we just mentioned. So in terms of features, there's really nothing to hold the Grand Cherokee back. You also get this screen again for the rear camera. So looking out, visibility rearward, say when you're off-roading or the camera is dirty, is not going to be a problem at all. You see this? That's the sensor for the ADAS, which is really one of the big highlights of the Grand Cherokee. So you have the full suite of level 2 ADAS functions. Of course, over and above that, you get a decent list of passive safety features. You get 8 airbags, you get TPMS, the mirror that we just showed you on the inside, and you get 360-degree cameras as well. Now, of course, if you've bought something like the Grand Cherokee, the rear seat is going to be very important to you. And if, of course, you have these large Alpine speakers as an Alpine audio system, the panoramic sunroof helps you with that sense of airiness, the sense of space that you so want in a car like this. So that's, of course, there. You have a high floor, so getting in is maybe slightly difficult, and you slightly sit in an ease-up position. But aside from that, you have this center armrest. You can recline this seat to a very comfortable angle, a good view out. You have this rear sunshade. So the Grand Cherokee is really going to be a comfortable car in the city or even on longer road trips. Now with the Jeep Grand Cherokee, you get a single engine option. It's a 2-liter turbo petrol, but it makes a fairly potent 272 PS and 400 Newton meters, and it mates to the 8-speed ZF auto box. Now you get a 4x4 system which will send up to 100% of the torque either to the front or the rear axle, or it can even do it side to side and does it automatically through that select terrain, those terrain modes that we showed you inside. So it does that too as well. So in terms of off-roading capability, it's also quite good, as you would expect a Jeep to be. Now the Jeep Grand Cherokee is priced at rupees 77.5 lakh. That undercuts traditional luxury SUVs like the Mercedes GLE. But remember, you get a whole load of tech like ADAS, a long list of features, that Jeep capability, and a nice turbo petrol engine. So with all that said, we think the Jeep Grand Cherokee really has a good shot at making an impact in this luxury SUV segment.
At 77.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom, the Jeep Grand Cherokee is pretty expensive, and considering in the market which also has luxury brands like Mercedes, Audi and BMW at the same price range, would you want to shell that kind of money for a Jeep Grand Cherokee? Let us know in our comment section on our YouTube channel. We'll be back after a very short break to tell you all about McLaren's debut in India. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Now McLaren is a very popular name for us motorsport fans, and if you've been watching Formula 1 for as long as I have, which has been decades, then you're already familiar with it. But it's a special day because McLaren has just debuted in India with their very first showroom right here in Mumbai. So let's take a look at what's on display. Infinity Cars dealership in Mumbai is the only authorized McLaren touchpoint in India, which will provide customers with sales, after-sales and service. On display at this dealership is the entry-level sports car McLaren GT, the supercars 720S Spider and the 765 LT Spider. The entry-level offering from McLaren in India is what you see behind me, the GT. Now this strikes a perfect balance between practicality and performance. And if you're talking about performance, it houses a 4-liter V8 twin-turbo engine that sprints to 100 kmph in just 3.2 seconds flat. The chassis is built with lightweight carbon fiber material that makes the sports tourer quicker than others in its segment. It also offers up 620 PS of power and 630 Nm of torque, which can be enjoyed to a top speed of 328 km per hour. Good luck though finding a road in India that lets you touch such speed. What you see right behind me is the McLaren 720S Spider, and it is a race car for the road. And it is also the best-selling model globally, and it's not hard to see why. The 720S is the core model in McLaren Super Series, and every curve and form is shaped to manage airflow. What adds to the visual drama of this charismatic supercar are the butterfly doors. The design screams out its intent to deliver high-level performance, which comes alive when you start up the mid-mounted 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which growls out 720 horsepower and 770 Nm of torque. It's capable of sprinting to 100 kph in 2.9 seconds. And it also gives you an option to enjoy a wind in your hair experience thanks to its retractable hardtop. In the Super Series lineup, McLaren India is also offering the more track-focused McLaren 765 LT. The aerodynamics of the supercar make it lighter and more powerful than the 720S that it's based on. The most attractive characteristic of the supercar is its rear end with centrally mounted 4-round exhaust pipes, and if you're wondering what a slight nudge to the throttle sounds like, here's a very mild tip. It's a showroom, so we couldn't expect the true menacing growl that a racetrack would be familiar with. But this beast houses a 4-liter V8 twin-turbo M840T engine that produces a mammoth 765 PS of power at 8,500 RPM and 800 Nm of torque at 5,500 RPM. It is capable of sprinting to 100 kmph in just 2.8 seconds. I caught up with Paul Harris, MD of the APAC region and China at McLaren Automotive and Lalit Choudary, Chairman and CEO Infinity Cars, to know more about the British brand's journey into India. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. My first question to you, Mr. Harris, is that we have been hearing rumors of McLaren entering Indian market for almost 10 years now. Why has it taken McLaren so long to enter the market?
Yeah, I think it's all about right time, right place, and right partner, and I think that that all came together about 18 months ago, and so we were able to announce Lalit and the Infinity team. I think they're a perfect partner for us. Mumbai is the perfect location, and we're in a perfect situation in terms of the development of the market as well. The growth of the rich, the growth of the sports car market, the understanding of this market. It's all come together in a synergistic way. So for us, it's the perfect time.
Okay. And Mr. Choudary, you've been in this industry for a decade now. You've studied it. So can you tell me what's the industry been like? What's the growth been like in this luxury car market?
So the industry started off with great promise 10-15 years ago, right? And then it's stuttered around for a while in the 2010 to 2020 era. And then COVID came along, and I think COVID has been a great reboot for the industry, for the segment in general. A lot more consumption, a lot more desire to upgrade in their consumption, and that's manifested itself in brands recording their best numbers in India over the last year or two. So to Paul's point, I think the timing couldn't have been better, and the Indian consumer is willing to consume the best that the automotive world has to offer and is willing to pay for it, but wants what's on latest offer internationally. And that's what we have here.
You have a great collection of cars right here, which are going to be sold from Mumbai. But what I'd like to know from both of you is that which of the models do you think will be preferred by the potential buyers in India?
Yeah, I mean, we only make 3 model lines as it stands at the moment in more what I call series production. So we have 720S here today, we have GT here today, and then shortly in the first quarter next year is the all-new Artura, which is a combination of art and future in the naming. I think, to be honest with you, that the Artura is probably the product line that is going to be the most appealing to India in that it's hybridized, but it's hybridized in a way whereby you do have flexibility, but it's also no compromise in relation to the performance of a McLaren. So still lightweight, still incredible performance capabilities, but also that ability to turn on to full electric mode when you need it.
And what is your understanding of the Indian market and the hybridization of it? Do you think there's a market for hybrid models and supercars especially?
There is a growing segment of population who would like to focus on decarbonization as a theme, and hybridization of a vehicle is one step towards that theme. It doesn't take away from those that want to enjoy the ICE experience, but at the same time, for somebody who wants to acquire the latest in technology and are conscious about decarbonization as a theme, hybrid offers a fantastic alternative, and McLaren's built a name for itself in being at the cutting edge of technology. So I'm sure a car coming in from McLaren on the hybrid front will be received very favorably.
I'll take it a step further and I'll talk about electrification, because that is something that everybody wants to know. Most of your peers have moved to the electrification front, but with an SUV body style. So we have been hearing rumors that McLaren is already thinking of an electric SUV. Is that true, and is that something you can tell us something more about it?
Well, I don't think we want to speculate about future models beyond Artura as it stands at the moment. I think we're a sports car brand, and that's where our DNA has been built and developed. Of course, the industry and the segments and the structure of the segments change, and no doubt that SUV has grown. In terms of powertrains, yeah, of course we see a development towards electrification. Now that's predominantly driven by some changes in legislation, a need and a want and an understanding of the requirement to decarbonise, etc. For sports car brands, though, that are relatively limited usage, relatively small volumes, etc., it's a bit more of a challenge because electrification doesn't necessarily lend itself to lightweight. So the battery in itself at the moment in current technology is very heavy. So before we make any steps at the moment, I think that we are concentrating on our hybrid capabilities, remembering that we have a hybrid history dating back to 2014. So we've got a lot of experience, and I think Artura is the coming together of all that experience in the best that we can do in that sector, and that will carry on for a number of years ahead. So beyond that, there is no speculation. That's where we are today.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back after a very short break to tell you more about the updated Volvo XC40. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive.
Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Now, the XC40 Recharge electric might be making headlines as of late, but it is the internal combustion engine of the XC40, which has always been an enticing option in the small luxury SUV space. In fact, recently it's just received a small update. Let's find out what's changed.
Now, the electric XC40 Recharge has been grabbing all the headlines lately, but the standard petrol-powered XC40 is still one of the more enticing choices in the small luxury SUV segment. And now for 2023, it gets the new petrol mild hybrid powertrain that Volvo has been rolling out across its lineup. It's got more tech inside and small updates inside and out. So what's it like to drive now? We're here today to find out. Now, as for what's changed on the outside, the two biggest differences from earlier is that you get this more angular headlamp shape, and the same angular pattern is now repeated here in the housing for the fog lamp. The alloys for the 18-inch wheels are now a fairly plain single-tone shade, while the dual-tone color palette has been lost too. This takes something away from the crisp square stance the XC40 has always had, but generally the Volvo continues to look distinctive and contemporary, despite now being around for a while. The rear remains largely untouched aside from the new B4 variant badging and a single-tone bumper insert. Now, the cabin of the XC40 was always a plush, serene space to spend time in, and that, as you would expect, remains unchanged with this quite minor update. So everything that you see is of top-notch quality, about the best that you can expect in this segment. For example, this plastic is quite soft. This wood grain actually has some real nice texture to it. Same with all these controls, the steering wheel itself, all the switchgear are right up there with the best in this segment. But the new addition is this Orifice glass shifter. It replaces that quite plain plastic one from earlier, and that genuinely does quite a bit to uplift this sense of space and premiumness that's in this cabin. Now, the other big change in the cabin is this new infotainment system. It's the same hardware, the same Sensus 9-inch screen that was there earlier, but it now runs an Android operating software, and that has its bonuses and negatives. Aside from other new features, you get a PM 2.5 air filter and USB-C charging. Carried over is a 14-speaker Harman Kardon audio system, wireless charging, panoramic sunroof, and lumbar support, although cooled seats are still missing. The XC40 gets the updated ADAS tech that Volvo debuted with these mild hybrids, but the system doesn't seem to be as reliable as the ones on the XC60 and S90. This could be down to the XC40 lacking a front camera. The assistance systems can tend to sometimes lose track of lane markings around bends and then add slightly exaggerated corrective inputs when it does detect the markings again. A new addition is that of blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and braking. The XC40 continues to offer one of the better backseat experiences in this segment, with good amounts of knee and legroom along with a flat floor. The panoramic sunroof also doesn't eat into headroom all that much. The boot is a usefully spacious 584 litres with a low load lip and an intricate through-loading space for large objects. The XC40 now adds a 48-volt integrated starter generator to the 2-litre turbo petrol motor. Power output has gone up by 7 PS to 197, while torque is still at 300 Nm. The engine pairing with an 8-speed Aisin torque converter. Our real-world mileage test also suggests that there's been a small jump in efficiency with this change. Now, this new mild hybrid engine option, it hasn't entirely altered the XC40's driving experience, although you do notice that there's a bit more linearity in the way that this small SUV covers ground now. So, for example, when you're just starting off, or when say you're below the turbo threshold, boost threshold, you realize that there's just that little bit more alertness than before, and that does help, say, when you're just ambling along in the city and so on. Aside from that, the engine itself is quite a linear one, so you have a wide spread of torque, so using it in any circumstances is not difficult. It's quite a, and like the rest of the cabin, it's a calming, fairly serene driving experience. Now, this 8-speed Aisin gearbox, that hasn't changed either, it's the same as before. And when you're just ambling along, taking things easy, which is the best way to drive the XC40 because the driving experience sort of mirrors the rest of the car, then it's just shuffling away in the background, you barely notice it working. It's only say when you put your foot down hard, you realize there's a slight delay, and then the car sort of downshifts to the right gear and picks up speed. And that wouldn't have been a problem if Volvo hadn't removed the drive modes with this update. It's done that in its other cars which have received this new mild hybrid powertrain. And we think that is a bit of a miss, because then it would have given you that sport drive mode and so on, that sense of agility when you needed it, which other cars in this segment always have. The XC40, again, like we mentioned, isn't a car to be driven hard. So the suspension and steering tuning mirrors that again. It's typically European in the way it handles our roads. So at low speeds over sharp bumps and potholes, there is a touch of firmness, and that sort of fades away as you build speed. But the steering, again, it's light and easy in traffic. It doesn't require too much effort. So in the sense, if you just want an easy, relaxing car to drive, the XC40's driving experience is right up there to suit you. As before, the Volvo XC40 continues to be keenly priced. The SUV is still one of the stronger contenders in the segment with its quality, value proposition and comforting driving demeanor. Although we would have liked to have seen fewer features being dropped with this change, the new equipment does add to the general sense of solitude you get with this car.
With that, it's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter as well as YouTube, and you can follow our latest updates on Instagram. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.